Hey guys, it's Sam with The Blind Spots. I recently made a video talking about the Radio Eye reading service here in Kentucky. If you didn't see that video, you missed it. I'm going to put a link right here. I'll also put a link down in the description. But now I was there at Radio Eye that day because I was recording a podcast. I was very fortunate to be asked to record this podcast. It was an interview, and I finally got the audio, so I also have a little bit of video to go along with it. It's about halfway through the recording. I started to take some video, and unfortunately it's not very much, but it gives you an idea of what was going on. Now, if you want to download this podcast, I will have a link in the description down below. You can download it. It's an MP3. You'll be able to play it anywhere you want to. So just check down below for that. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Also, I should say, at the very beginning of this podcast, you could tell that I was pretty nervous. I tend to ramble a lot, so I'm very sorry about that. I think over the course of the interview, I became more and more comfortable, and I was making more sense, but it's a little tough there at the beginning, so just keep that in mind. But that's it, guys. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoy the show. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below. I'll do my best to help out. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do all that stuff, you know. Thank you very much. This is Sam with The Blind Spot. I'll see you next time.
Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure today to be here as conversation host at Radio Eye Studios, and I'm Pamela Roark-Glisson. And the views and opinions expressed on the program are not necessarily those of Radio Eye. Today in the studio, we have a guest with us who is Sam Seavey, and Sam is very active in the community. And Sam, it's great to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Pam. It's great to be here. I'm very honored that you guys invited me out. This is a very impressive studio. If no one has seen it before, I'm very impressed with the layout.
Yeah. So, Sam, would you tell us some about yourself?
Sure. I am currently working at the Bluegrass Council of the Blind on South Broadway here in Lexington. I am working as their assistive technology coordinator and trainer. So, and what that means is if anybody wants to come in and get some training or some help with their iPhone or their iPad or their Android tablet, or Zoom text, help with screen magnification on the computer, I would be the guy to come in and talk to about that. And CCTVs, we've got a ton of CCTVs that people can come in and play with and see if they help out.
Okay. What is your schedule? Would they just contact Bluegrass Council of the Blind to get in? Okay.
Absolutely. Give the office a call. I'm in on Mondays and Fridays. And we can just schedule a time to come in. If you haven't come in yet, if you haven't been there previously, the first time in will probably just be an intake, get to know you and find out exactly what you're looking for and what kind of things we can help with. And then probably maybe take a look at some things but then probably schedule another time to come in and play around with all the goodies. We've got lots of toys.
Okay. So how did you get interested in access technology for people who are blind or visually impaired?
Well, I myself am visually impaired. I'm low vision. I have a condition called Stargardt's disease, which actually it's very funny. Growing up, I was the only one. It manifested around 11 or 12 years old. And my sister has it as well. And she was the only other person I knew, number one with Stargardt's, but also low vision, until I went to a school for the blind in high school, where I met another kid with Stargardt's disease. And I thought that was just awesome. I was like, finally, there is someone else in the world other than myself and my sister that's like me. And in that particular case, going to the school for the blind was an amazing experience in general. And I always recommend to people, if you have children with low vision, or if you're a kid with low vision, go to a school, go to a camp. There's tons of different camps out there. it's really the first time I was around peers and my equals and kids that were like me, and I wasn't the different one. I was just like everybody else, and it was awesome, and there's all kinds of fun activities. But sorry, got off on a rant there.
That's okay. I'm sure that's encouraging for parents of blind children.
Yes.
Awesome.
And but I in my job and other activities that I do in my personal life, I'm meeting a lot of people with Stargarts. They're coming out of the woodwork. It's like we're having a parade and everybody's invited, and which is awesome. So it's a much bigger community, and then with things like social media, Facebook, it's much easier to get a hold of others with your particular eye condition. So I'm pretty active. Well, not as active as I should be, but on the Facebook forums for Stargardt's disease, and it's pretty good. It's nice to meet others out there.
So you're visually impaired, and you attended a school for the blind.
Yep.
And so how did that lead you into the access technology arena?
Well, my vision, if anybody's wondering, my visual acuity is probably around 2600, and then Stargardt's manifests with blind spots, no central vision. So my peripheral is still pretty decent. I can see you sitting across the desk here from me, Pam. You're probably about 4 or 5 feet away from me. I can't tell which direction your eyes are facing, or anything like that, or detail, but I can see you fairly well. But back to answering your question that you started. I go off on rants. I'm sorry. Not rants, but I babble sometimes. But that really opened up my eyes to the world of visually impaired and the possibilities that were out there. And it really wasn't until my 30s that I fully accepted my vision impairment and stopped fighting it and stopped trying to be normal and be sighted. And it's exhausting. I talk to people a lot about that nowadays, that who are in that situation where they're still kind of denying it. I can do everything that anybody else can do. I don't need a magnifier. I don't need a CCTV or a cane. That's a big one. And I tell them that, it's exhausting putting up that front all the time. But it's hard. Like I said, I was in my 30s probably before I fully accepted it and said, you know what? I don't care what everyone else thinks. I don't care how weird it looks that I'm using a magnifier to read my phone. I need that magnifier to read my phone. I'm going to do it. So that kind of became my mantra, that I'm going to hopefully encourage people to do the same. And technology is amazing right now for people with low vision. That's another thing I tell people is we are living in the best time in history to have low vision. Could you imagine being back on the prairies and and not being able to see, and you're living on a farm and nobody else is around, and you have a horse to get to the town? That would have been horrible. But thanks to technology right now, it's improved our lives and made them so much easier. Voice assist, optical character recognition, OCR on our phones that can take a picture of a document and then read it aloud to us. CCTVs, Siri, Google, all of these things are amazing tools that can help us out tremendously.
And while we do have so much technology and access technology available, how would a person go about discovering what exactly is going to work for them? What, program, device, is computer, how does a person figure out, okay, this will work for me, this will be practical and what I need to do, and this won't? So how does a person go about figuring that out? Because along with all of the technology, it's also very expensive many times.
Oh yeah, yes. Yeah, and that's the hard part. I've said that before, that when clients come in to the BCB and I'm trying to find something that'll work for them, I tell them, I said, unfortunately, everybody's different.
Yeah.
Every eye condition is different. And on a side note, I am amazed at all the different ways our eyes can fail us. I mean, there's, Stargardt's like I have, there's RP, detached retinas. I mean, there's just glaucoma, cataract. I mean, there's dozens, hundreds of different ways that we can lose our vision. And unfortunately, because of that, everybody's different. So the magnifier that I use, which is I believe a 12 times power, very, very strong, but that's what I need. Next person, Joe Blow over here, might not need that as strong of a magnifier, or he might not like mine as a round magnifier. He might want a square one. Might work best for him.
Yeah.
So I always recommend finding a place. Of course, talking to your doctor. They can hopefully recommend organizations like American Council of the Blind, National Federation of the Blind, BCB, Bluegrass Council of the Blind, places that you can go to play around with all these different toys. I call them toys because they're fun to play around with.
Yeah.
and see what works best for you. Unfortunately, nothing is going to work as well as a perfectly working pair of eyes are going to work. But that's just the reality of it, and that's one of those things that we just have to accept and move on. This magnifier doesn't work nearly as well as my eyes would if they worked fine, but I make the best that I can with it. But yeah, coming into a place like one of those organizations, Charles McDowell Center for the Blind in Louisville, and testing them out, see what works.
Okay. Well, if we could go back to the point you were making about you were in your 30s before you decided that you would come to grips with the vision loss, and so was there anything definite, a situation or anything that caused you to just decide, okay, this is the way it is for me, and I'm going to use whatever I need to be independent? Because I think that's what everybody wants to be, is as independent as possible.
Yeah. I think for me, I don't, excuse me, I don't know if there was a particular moment. For me, a big factor was my wife basically telling me, okay, you're being stupid. To be blunt, stop it. You're not fooling anybody when you're in the restaurant and you're looking at the menu. And because, as I said before, I have no central vision. I have peripheral, and my peripheral's pretty good. So I can be looking in your direction, but I can see what's going on all around me pretty well, even though I can't see in your direction very well.
Yeah.
So when I'm pretending to read a menu, I'm actually looking around with my peripheral to see if anybody's looking in my direction. And if they're not looking in my direction, then I very quickly, with my magnifier, look at the menu the way I need to look at the menu so I can actually read it. And then I'll read a couple lines, and I'll pull it away and kind of look around, and no, nobody's looking at me. And okay, I can go back in. And that's what I said. It's exhausting to try and do that all the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, my wife basically was like, you're being ridiculous. You need to just, there's nothing to be ashamed of. That's the main thing. I don't know the exact numbers, but there are a lot of visually impaired people in the world. A lot of visually impaired people in the world. If it's not equal numbers of visually impaired to non-visually impaired, it's pretty close. So it's not like I'm a minority in the world. There's a lot of us around, so I don't need to be ashamed of it. It's a very common thing. So don't be ashamed of it. Don't try and fake it. And like I said, I just got to the point where I'm like, I'm getting too old for this. I don't need to, when I was in my 20s and stuff, I wanted to be cool and I wanted to, everybody to like me. And now when I got into my 30s, I'm like, no, I don't need to do that.
Yeah.
I'm happy with who I am.
Well, as I've shared with the listeners previously, I'm visually impaired as well. And I learned a long time ago that it really is respectable to be blind. It's all about how we address it, how we go about our lives with the visual impairment.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk to us about the access with the smartphones. Are they pretty easy, convenient for someone who's visually impaired to learn to use? And is there one better than another as far as the Android or the iPhone? Talk to us some about that.
Okay, yeah. They're absolutely easy to learn. I mean, there is a learning curve, don't get me wrong, but they are absolutely amazing tools for people with low vision and no vision at all. I always recommend that if you are completely blind, light perception, like that, then you're probably better off with an iPhone or an iPad or an iDevice. If you're low vision like me, then Android is the better way to go, and I'll explain why. I have reasons. There's methods behind the madness. The iPhone is it's not, I shouldn't say simple, but it's very simplified user interface. You have a home screen, and there's icons, and they're laid out in a grid pattern. I think it's like 3x5 or something like that, grid pattern. And then you can swipe through different pages, but all the pages are the same. Of course, your icons can move around. You can set those where you want them, but they're always going to be in a grid pattern on the home screen, filling up the home screen. And the other thing about iPhone is your iPhone is the exact same iPhone as your sister's iPhone, and or my iPhone is the same as my neighbor's iPhone. They're all laid out the same way. My icons are going to be in different places, of course, but you know where the clock is, you know where the icons are, you know where the phone button is, you know what the phone, when you get into the dialer pad, the dialer application, you know what it looks like. The contacts app, they always look the same. So that's why if you don't have any vision and you're using VoiceOver, it's easy to navigate because you're familiar with it, and it's where everything's going to be. iPhone also, admittedly, like I said, I'm an Android guy, so it hurts me to say, but iPhone does actually have a better accessibility features than Android does. Android is playing catch up to iPhone in that regard. So VoiceOver, the screen magnification, although I don't love their screen magnification, but that's a personal preference, works better than Android's VoiceOver. It's called TalkBack on Android. But so there and again, if you don't have any vision and you're using those features, they work better on iPhone. If you are low vision like myself, Android is better because it's fully customizable. That's one of the big benefits of Android, and that's one they've really strived to provide with their operating system, is that it's customizable.
Wouldn't it also make a difference depending on the prognosis of the individual's vision, as far as, maybe your low vision and it's stable? I don't know. But if someone is diagnosed with something and they have pretty high partial vision or residual vision right now, however, the prognosis is down the road, it could deteriorate more. And since these phones are expensive, wouldn't it also make a difference as far as what you chose, depending on what the doctors say may happen to your vision in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the factors that you'll have to take into consideration. And that goes back to the fact that, unfortunately, not everybody's the same. It would be easy if someone came in and I said, okay, you have macular degeneration, then you need this CCTV and this magnifier and this phone.
Right.
That would be awesome. So that goes back also, like you said, to trying out different ones. I always recommend go to a phone store like AT&T or Verizon and play with the floor models and see what works best for you.
Right.
the Android, the fact that it is customizable is a big benefit for someone with low vision, but it's also a negative because my Android phone looks completely different than my wife's Android phone. And both of ours look completely different than my mother-in-law's Android phone. And I have a Galaxy Note 4 as my personal phone, and I recommend that one because it has a nice big screen. It's a 5.7-inch big screen, which, once again, for low vision is awesome. But my Note 4 could look entirely different, like staggeringly different than your Note 4 if you had one. And so that's the drawback. But like, for example, for me, I can't see the little clock, the little digital clock that's up in the top right corner of cell phones. Even with my magnifier, I'll have to kind of look at it for a little while before I kind of can make it out. So, but because Android is customizable, I can find a clock widget that fills up the entire top half of my screen, super big, and I can usually go in, depending on the widget, I can go in, I can change the font. If it's not a font that's easy for me to recognize, I can choose a bold font or a thin font if it's too big, or a lot of times you can add a shadow so it kind of pops off the screen. There's lots of little tricks you can do. But that way I can just pull my phone out, unlock the screen, and glance at it, and I can see that really big clock. I don't even have to get my magnifier out. That's why I prefer Android. But as you said, I am not. My eyes are very slow progressing. It is continually getting worse, but it's very, very slow. Knock on wood, thankfully. But once again, it just goes back to everybody needs to try them out, test them out, and see what works.
Right. Well, that sounds really convenient, the way that you have your Android configured for your personal use. And I would like to go back. You mentioned your wife and that she has an Android phone as well.
Yep.
Would you like to talk to us more about your family?
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to.
Okay.
Well, I'm married. Yeah, my wife and Rachel is amazing. She works at Lexington Clinic here in Lexington, and as a medical dosimetrist, which every time I say that to someone, they have that stunned look that I imagine you have right now on your face, Pam, as to what a medical dosimetrist is. And basically, she works in the cancer treatment center. She does a lot of calculations on how much treatment you should get if you have different cancers and things. So she is amazing. I have a daughter who is 10 and is going into middle school next year, which is insane. And then I have a son who, even more insane, is 18 and will be starting college in the fall at Morehead State.
Well, that's exciting, Sam, that you have a young man who's going into college in Morehead State University.
Yeah.
I'd like to say here that Radio I has studio space at Morehead State University.
Oh.
And so for anybody listening and would like more information, you can call Radio I here in Lexington and learn more about that availability in Morehead. So I'm sorry, Sam, to interrupt.
No, that's awesome.
So you go ahead.
And he and none of my kids so far are showing any signs of vision loss, which is great, especially since we've talked before that extra drivers in the household are always welcome.
Yes.
Take the burden off our spouses. And I've really been blessed with two great kids. They're very helpful, and I've actually talked to them about growing up with a blind parent and what that's been like, and I found, and people on Facebook have asked me what it's like and if they feel different than other kids around them, and they said no, and it makes sense that this is their life. This is the way they grew up. They've always had a blind parent, so it's always been this way. So helping Dad read a menu, or even worse, if we go to a fast food place and they have the menu board up behind the people at the register, it's kind of funny. It's kind of a leftover of my pretending to be sighted, or maybe it's just a natural reaction. I stand there and I stare up at the board, even though I can't read anything on that board. I pretend. I'm not really pretending, but you have to look somewhere, I guess, and naturally you want to look up at that board. But my daughter or my son or my wife will sit there and quietly, discreetly read the specials and all that to me. So I'm very blessed with how helpful they are. And like I said, having my son just got his license last year, and that's been great.
That's exciting.
Yes.
For him, I'm sure.
It's more exciting for me. No, yeah, he loves it. And having a driver, an extra driver, takes the burden off my wife. My wife would come home, and any errands that we had to run, go to the grocery store. One of the worst is, if you have to get the car's oil changed or something like that. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
But any of those would either have to be in the evening or on the weekend. So you spend all your weekend running all these errands, and my wife works 9 to 5, a normal job, 5 days a week, and then she comes home and she has to run to the cleaners or take my daughter to an after-school event, which she's happy to do, but it's still a burden it gets tiring after a while. So having an extra driver really, really helps. That's why I also love the Wheels program here in Lexington. There's, of course, you're going to have bad days where you maybe get forgotten about. Wheels forgets about you, or you have to wait. I understand that, but in my opinion, that's a small price to pay for being able to go anywhere I need to in Lexington for $2. You can't beat that.
Yeah.
I will definitely take that. But my son, yeah, like as I was saying, he's been a great help with running me around, getting things done, running these errands that would normally be put on my wife.
That's good. Have you all lived in Lexington very long?
I've been here since '96. I'm not a native Kentuckian, and I say that, and I always have to look around and make sure someone's not going to attack me, because I'm not a local. I love the state though, and that's mainly reason why I stayed. I moved here in '96. I graduated in high school in '94, and my father was moving out here and with a job, and my sister and I were like, well, I'm from North Carolina originally, and we had lived in North Carolina and on the East Coast our whole lives, and so we were ready for something new, and there wasn't really anything keeping us in North Carolina, so we're like, well, we'll come with you, and we moved out here. We got our own place. My father got his own place. He worked in Frankfurt for a little while, and then a couple years later, he moved to Florida and left us, abandoned us. And like I said, I love the country, or the state, the rolling hills, the horse farms. It's beautiful here.
Yeah.
And we both had jobs, my sister and I, so we're like, we're going to stay. And then a few years later, she left. She moved to Alabama.
Oh.
Left me here alone. And but that's all right. I was happy. I think my parents and my family were a little surprised. They're probably a little nervous about leaving their visually impaired son by himself. But I was in my 20s. I was fine. I was living alone by that point, and paying my own bills and rent and everything, and it was fine. I had a job, good job, and they were fine leaving me. And I've had some interesting jobs since.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you'd share some about the employment that you've had.
Yeah, I've always worked in restaurants, because that's what you do when you're young. You get a job in a kitchen or serving food, and I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I started out in the dish room just like everybody does generally, and worked my way up to I was a shift manager at Bellinote here in Lexington. Yeah, I worked at a Daryl's actually that used to be on Reynolds Road, and they
Right.
tore that down. And then when Bellinote was being built, I applied for the job there, and so when I applied for the job, they were still building the building, so we were the first crew that ever worked there, and I worked there for 6 years, and as in the kitchen. Prep chef and all that, getting the food ready for the night, and then went to Romano's Macaroni Grill,
Oh, yeah.
which was over there by Walmart on
Right.
Nicholasville Road, and worked there for another 6 years or so until it shut down. Until actually my daughter was born. I was married at that point, and my daughter was born, and my wife working at Lexington Clinic. It's a much better job than I was working. So we decided that I would stay home and be the stay-at-home daddy, and she would go back to work, and that worked out great. And I've basically been sort of unemployed since then, because my eyes were getting too bad for me to continue in the restaurant. I couldn't read the recipes anymore, and measuring things out was getting difficult. But everybody was very accommodating there, and we used to I'd have a list of all the stuff I needed to prep for the day when I would come in. And normally they would write it out on a piece of paper and give the paper to the person, and there could be 20 things on this list. So instead, for me, they had this big whiteboard, and they would write it out really big on the whiteboard for me, the whole list, so I could get up close and I could read it. So they did everything they could, but it just how it is. You get to a point where this job isn't working anymore. So I left, and as I said, my daughter was born, and I just decided to stay home. And after a couple years, she started going to school. I wanted to do something. So I actually, and it's very funny when I think back on it, working in the kitchen, I did a lot of desserts, and that was always my favorite thing. And I mentioned to some people here earlier that donuts, I'm a sucker for donuts. I love donuts. And my waistline doesn't love the donuts, though. But it's a constant battle between me and my waistline of who's going to win out. But I always loved making the desserts. And so when I was looking for something to do, I saw that the local Hobby Lobby and Michael's were offering the cake decorating classes. And so I decided, you know what, I'm going to go take cake decorating classes. And I took those, and it's a month-long class. And then once you finish, you get your little certificate. And I learned all the techniques and stuff. And I've always been pretty quick at picking things up. So when you sign up for those classes, you have to fill out a little form. And one of the things on there is if you would be interested in becoming an instructor someday. And I said, sure, why not? So I filled it out, and I said yes. And lo and behold, they called me. And they were looking for some instructors here in Lexington. They needed spots to be filled. And I said, sure, I'm not doing anything else. Might as well. And so I had to do a little bit more training before I could become a certified Wilton cake decorating instructor. But I did. And I taught classes at the Michaels on Nicholasville Road for a little while. I also taught at the Hamburg Michaels. And then I taught... my largest stretch of teaching was at the Brannon Crossing Hobby Lobby.
Oh.
So for several years, the ladies had a blind guy teaching them how to decorate cakes.
Yeah.
And it, just like everything, I couldn't do it exactly the same way that one of the other fully sighted instructors did it, but I adapted it to a way that I could do it. I didn't do a lot of hands-on demonstrations where I, would go to person and show them right in front of them how to do a shell border or a rose. But I would have everyone come around, and I would do right in front of me where I could see it, and it was easy for me to do it, and I would demonstrate the technique, and then I'd say, okay, now you guys go try.
Yeah.
And I would go around and check and stuff. So I adapted it, and it was fun. I had a lot of fun, and I actually had a little cake decorating business on the side. I would decorate for friends and cakes and birthdays and stuff, and I have lots of pictures if anybody would ever like to see those. But once again, it got to the point where I was having my wife do a lot of the detail stuff. And so she was having to do most of the cake. And it just wasn't, because of that, it wasn't enjoyable anymore. So I knew it was time to find something else. And I was a creative person. I was actually in high school. I was kind of gearing up to be a comic book artist. I've always been good at drawing and painting and things like that. This was back when my eyes were much, much better than they are now.
Yeah.
And so I thought that's where my career was going, is towards drawing comic books. So I've always enjoyed creating and making cool things, and it doesn't hurt that you make something and everybody's like, wow, that's amazing. I can't believe you did that. And I'm like, yeah, I totally did do that. I'm awesome. To be a little vain. But so I was pretty sad that had to end. But so I was looking for something else, looking for another outlet for my creativity. And at this point, I was probably on my second smartphone, in an Android phone, and I loved it. I loved as we said before, the customizational abilities. So I was looking on YouTube for different ways to customize my phone. And as YouTube is, you can find just about everything you need to know on there. I found a ton of videos on how to hack my phone, I should say, with air quotes, hack. I call it modifying, but some people might call it hacking.
Yeah.
The truth is, the honesty is, if you own the device, it's not really hacking. It's your own personal phone. You can hack it if you want to. It's only if it's someone else's property, then it's not a good thing. But there was a gentleman who had videos, a gentleman named Josh Gross, and he was based out of Texas, and he had a business that was modifying cell phones and tablets and teaching people how to. And if your screen broke or you dropped it in the water, in the toilet, and you got water in it, you could send it to him and he would fix it. Much cheaper than sending it to AT&T or Verizon or whatever to have it replaced. So he had a growing business, and he was making these videos teaching people how to modify their devices. And I saw one day on Facebook, I learned a ton of stuff from him. And then so I was following him on Facebook, and I saw one day that he was looking for someone to take over the videos because his business was growing. He didn't have time for both. And he just wanted someone to make the videos and teach people how to modify the phones under his company name. And I said, you know what? I think I could do that. That here is a job, and he would pay. And so I said, here's a job I can make money, and I could adapt it, do it at home, and adapt it the way I need it to be. I could set it up exactly the way it would work for me and my low vision. And I loved my phone. I loved messing around with it, and I wanted to help other people do that too. So I applied for the job and got the job and started making videos for him. I created a second channel because he was the primary person on his channel, and it was tied to his bank account and all that stuff. I couldn't access his channel. So we created a second channel, and that channel was called Mobile Tech Videos 2, number 2. And I did that for several years. I made videos all about Android phones, Android tablets, showing people how to customize them and improve the speed of them and put on cool graphics and all kinds of interesting stuff. And
so was the customization for the general user of the Android, or for
absolutely.
people who had low vision?
No. This was primarily for just your average Joe wanting to make their phone extra cool. But while I was doing those videos, every now and then I also did hardware and software reviews. So Josh would send me phones and tablets, and I would do a review of it, and then play around with it for a week or two, and then I'd send it back to him, and he'd send me another one. It was a pretty awesome job there for a little while.
Sounds like it.
I got to play with all kinds of cool toys. But I would do app reviews and software reviews, and every now and then I would feature an application that was geared towards accessibility, geared towards people with low vision or low hearing. And I love doing that because those were the apps that I was using. I wanted to feature them. I had this outlet that I could do that and reach a lot of people. That channel got up to 9,000 subscribers.
Wow.
Which, yeah, it's pretty good. It's not bad. It's nothing in comparison to some YouTubers who have millions and millions and hundreds of millions of subscribers. But all in all, not too bad. But so I had this outlet that I could reach people, and I wanted to share these awesome applications that were making my life easier, and I knew they would make other people's life easier. And so every time I would put out one of those videos, and I would check the comments, I would get comments from people saying, "Oh, this is amazing. I didn't know this app existed. I have low vision too. Thank you so much for showing this off. What about screen magnification or voiceover? Can you feature one of those those apps?" And so based on that positive feedback, I was thinking, well, you know what? I've never searched on YouTube for Stargarts, which, as I said before, is my eye condition. And so I did one day and just searched Stargarts, and there wasn't very much out there. There was maybe 2 people who had made 1 or 2 videos talking about their life with Stargarts. And that was about it. Then there was clinical videos, doctors talking about it and things like that, which wasn't exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for a more personal life experience, tips and tricks, things that would help me. So I said, you know what? I've gotten positive feedback from people about my accessibility videos. I'd only done like 2 or 3 at that point. And then based on the fact that there wasn't really much information out there about Stargarts or low vision in general, I thought, you know what? I've got the equipment, I've got the camera, I've got the microphone and all that. I know how to edit the videos and upload them. Why don't I just go ahead and make my own channel based on living life with low vision? And so that is how The Blind Spot was born. And I chose the name. One of the hardest things with creating anything, creating a channel, creating a business, even for me, creating a folder on my computer, is coming up with the name. And that's one of the things I struggle with. So I thought, well, I wanted something that had to do with low vision, of course. That's what the channel is going to be about. But I wanted it to also represent somewhere that people could come to get information about low vision. It also had to be something about myself. So I went with a bunch of different things. I kind of played around with different things, but ultimately I was sitting, I still remember I was sitting up on my bed in my room. My wife was, I think, brushing her teeth or something in the bathroom. And I said, The Blind Spot. Because of my lack of central vision, I have a big blind spot in my central vision, and I thought, it's a spot where you can come learn about being blind. It's perfect. And I Googled it and didn't find anything. Actually, there weren't any YouTube channels. Come to find out later on, a gentleman contacted me that he had a channel called The Blind Spot Gamer, which I don't know why it didn't come up in my search when I searched. Gentleman named Christian Lowe lives up in Canada. Great guy. He has Stargarts also. That's why he named his channel The Blind Spot Gamer. But he had a gaming channel, so it was very different than what I was wanting to do. And he also hadn't been active on there in a couple years, so it wasn't that big of a deal. We've talked since then. We've become friends on Facebook and things. But so that's how it was born. And I just celebrated 1,000 subscribers about a month and a half ago. Right now it's growing. That's the great thing about YouTube anyway, is the more subscribers you get, the faster you get subscribers. It's an exponential growth. So over it was right around March. It was right around spring break. We celebrated 1,000 subscribers, and as of yesterday, I have 1,230, I think, now.
Wow! Congratulations.
Thank you. So it's growing. It's awesome, and that's actually not to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty proud of that. If you think about the fact that it's a channel about and for people with low vision to no vision. So really, how many people with no vision are watching videos on YouTube, if you think
Right.
about it, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm pretty proud of that number. And hopefully it's just going to continue to grow. I have over 200 videos on the channel, all types of videos. It's kind of a hodgepodge of topics. I do review videos. I have videos about low vision must-haves as far as canes and monoculars and magnifiers and CCTVs. I show off my CCTV setup at home. I have a whole series, now that I'm working at the Bluegrass Council of the Blind, I've been doing a whole series of different CCTVs featuring them and how they work. And as I said before, though, my motto is about not trying to fake it. Just accept your low vision, your vision impairment. So that's kind of the motto of the channel. And the other motto is it's going to be all right. I talk to a lot of people through the channel and through the Facebook forums that have recently been diagnosed, or parents of children that have recently been diagnosed, and they're in that sometimes denial phase, definitely that oh no, my life is over phase. And I try to tell them, yes, it's going to be hard. You're going to have a lot of days where you're just like, I'm not even getting out of bed. I'm not even going to deal with it.
Yeah.
But it's going to be okay. You're going to adapt. You're going to learn how to do all the things that you want to do, just in a different way. And you absolutely can do all those things, just not the same way that you could before.
Right.
So I try to preach that. I also try to bring the humorous side of it, because it's not all doom and gloom. I say that all the time. There are some very funny things about being blind. In fact, I have a series that is I have one video that's called the Low Vision Lottery, where I play it all the time. In the video, the particular example I give is there's something on the floor, and I see it. I see that there's something on the floor, but I can't tell what it is. So I have to play the low vision lottery. Do I want to pick it up? Do I want to bend down and pick it up and find out what it is? What if it's nasty? What if it's a dead animal somehow that got into my house? So in the video, I try to convey that thought process. I think like, well, I don't smell anything, so I don't think it's a dead animal, And then I reach down and it's just a dog toy, and I'm like, oh yes, I won the low vision lottery. and then you go on and you play it again the next day for something entirely different. And in fact, I was just trying to think of a new video within that series that I could do. And there's situations all the time. If I go out and someone's picking me up from an event, say we're here at the library and my wife's going to pick me up. I go out and there could be 6 cars parked there in the driveway waiting to pick people up, and I have to play the low vision lottery. Which one is the car that I need?
Yeah.
Do I randomly, especially if I don't know which car it is, what car I'm looking for, do I randomly go up and peek in the window and hope? I have actually gotten into a stranger's car before, accidentally, and freaked the lady out. I've got a video talking about that experience too. She screamed. She thought I was there to kill her, I'm sure. It was nighttime. It was raining. A friend of mine was waiting, took me to a pharmacy or something at a local drugstore, and I went in, and she was waiting in the car, and I come back out, and I didn't really pay attention to where she parked. And like I said, it was raining and nighttime, and so I just jumped into the running car that I thought it was, and yeah, the lady freaked out, and I felt horrible. I'm sorry, it's a wrong car. I'm sorry. I'm not here to murder you. I promise. So that would be one of the humorous sides of having low vision.
To that kind of humor, have you ever been in a restaurant with people around you who are sighted and are looking at the menu and this and that, and the server realizes that you are low vision or blind, or assumes that you're blind, so he or she may shout to you, or ask who you're with, what would he like to have to drink?
Yes. Yeah. That happens, and that's one of those things. I don't understand it. I'm not hearing impaired. I can
Right.
hear you just fine. In fact,
Right.
I can probably hear you better than anyone else at this table.
Yeah.
So you don't need to shout.
Yeah.
I love our super hearing, and Pam, you can probably relate. I had a conversation with Teresa over at Bluegrass Council of the Blind. I heard her. It was when I first was volunteering. I was talking to Chelsea inside, and I could hear her walking outside of the building up to the building. And I told Chelsea, I was like, "Someone's here," and Chelsea, really? And then a few minutes later, Teresa comes walking by the window, and then she comes in, and Chelsea's like, "Yeah, Sam heard you all the way out by the parking lot." And I'm like, "That's our super hearing. We're superheroes. We have a superpower that not everybody does, and it's awesome."
Well, I have to try to help with the myth and misconception that we do have that when you lose your vision, then all this other great stuff kicks in.
Yeah.
This is true. However, anyone could develop that hearing if they needed to or desired to.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a matter of, okay, so we don't see so well, so we're going to become more aware of our environment by hearing.
Yes.
And so there are many misconceptions about people who are blind and have other kinds of disabilities as well. And I guess the biggest myth and misconception might be, you can share about your experience with the low vision or being blind, is that, well, you just don't know anything.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be told everything. You just don't know anything.
That's absolutely true. And yeah, and back on the hearing thing, my family, I tease that with them all the time. It's like, well, that's just my super hearing. Like,
Right.
You don't have super hearing. You just use it more than we do.
Right.
It's a skill, like you said, that's developed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, people have all kinds of misconceptions about low vision, and my biggest one that I found that drives me crazy is a lot of people think, and it's just ignorance really, that if you're visually impaired, then you can't see at all, or you can wear glasses and it will fix that. Or you don't need glasses and you're not visually impaired, you can see fine. And they think it's black or white. You can see or you can't see. But I know there's this huge gray area in the middle that most people actually fall into.
Right.
And that glasses aren't this magic cure-all for all vision impairments. I wish they were, absolutely. I would have a really awesome pair of glasses and wear them all the time.
Me too.
Yeah. But they can't. And I get a lot of times, well, where did you forget your glasses? And well, why aren't you wearing your glasses? I'm like, no, I don't have glasses.
What glasses?
No, I'm sorry. I went into a store recently, last winter, I believe it was, and it was a Bed Bath & Beyond. I'll plug the store. And I went to buy something, and my father-in-law dropped me off, and he was waiting in the car out there, and I just ran in to pick something up, and I went to pay for it, and of course, I hate the little card scanners. I cannot use the card scanners. It's always awkward when I have to ask the person to use them. And incidentally, Hobby Lobby will not use them. They are forbidden to scan your card for you. So that makes it even worse. But this lady, of course, was very nice, and she did it. But she said, well, I sure hope you didn't drive here. I said, no, rude, I didn't drive here. And what if I did? I made it, right? I didn't kill anybody.
Well, we were checking out at Walmart one time, and I use my cane everywhere I go. It's just safer that way.
Yes.
And so we put everything up on the thing to be scanned, and the clerk was standing there, and she was just standing there, and pretty soon she said, well, I need to scan that too. And the person I was with and myself, we were, what is she talking about? Well, what is that, a broom? What? I said, oh, no. And I have to say that's happened several times where
Wow.
somebody wanted to scan my cane because I was just standing there holding my cane, waiting to check out. And yeah. So, hey, Sam.
Yes.
There's a great idea for another video for your Blind Spot YouTube channel.
Absolutely.
The myths and misconceptions about low vision.
I need to do that. I need to, and then if I could somehow recreate those situations,
Oh, yeah.
that would be excellent.
That would be so
I might have to
funny.
employ you to help me with that one.
I'd love to.
Pick the cane up in the blind cane aisle.
Right.
Well, one thing that a video I have coming out soon is featuring the One Touch class that we just took at the BCB last week. And I know we're running out of time. We'll have to come back and talk about it some other time. But
Oh, that would be fun.
But you guys need to hear the story of how Pam took me to my knees, and we were working together, and she went a little aggressive and dropped me to the floor. Little Miss Pam, unassuming, didn't want to hurt me the rest of the time.
No, I didn't want to hurt you.
Took me down, and it hurt. It did hurt, Pam.
I didn't mean to do it.
No, you did exactly what you were supposed to do.
That was really a fun training, and I gained so much from the discussions that we had, as well as learning the techniques during the training. I would recommend anybody to find the One Touch training and participate. And hopefully we can talk more about that on another program in the future.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Sam, I want to thank you so much today for being here and just being open and sharing about the challenges, the humor, the different things that we all experience with low vision. And I would like to say to anybody listening that regardless of your degree of vision loss, you can truly live the life that you want. Yes, there may be obstacles and challenges. However, there are ways to get around them, overcome them, and address whatever it is so that you really can live the life you want. Whether it's employment, having fun, whatever it is, you can do it. It's just a matter of making up your mind and having the attitude that you're going to do what you want to and live the life that you want. Sam, could you tell us again how we can find your Blind Spot YouTube channel?
Yeah, absolutely, and an absolute my absolute pleasure to be here to speak with you today. If you just go onto YouTube and search The Blind Spot or The Blind Spot Sam, that should pop up some of my videos, or you can even just search my name, Sam Seavey, Seavey.
Thank you so much, Sam, again, for being here today. It's been very informative and a lot of fun. And thank you to all of the listeners who are taking time to listen today. And I would like to invite you to contact Radio Eye if there's someone you would like to hear interviewed on the conversation program. Just let us know, and we'd be glad to make that happen for you. Thank you again, and everyone have an amazing day.